Next up is our Shaker Heights Board of Education candidates. There are 2 candidates plus 1 write-in candidate for 3 positions, so they're unopposed. There are 4-year terms. The terms are staggered. There are a total of 5 school board members. 2 other school board members have terms expiring in 2 years. The school board members also do not have wards or neighborhoods. They each serve the community at large. The school district includes all of municipal Shaker Heights plus a portion of City of Cleveland around Shaker Square. The board members oversee annual expenditures of about $130 million. Board members supervise 2 employees, the superintendent and the treasurer. Board members generally have 2 board meetings, work sessions each month, plus committee meetings. There is no salary. Members serve as volunteers, and this is true for about less than 4% of the school boards in Ohio. Each of our candidates will provide an opening statement of 3 minutes, and then followed by a question and answering session from the audience, and the question and answering session will be 1 minute, and then our question screeners here will give you a 30-minute warning. 30-second warning, followed by a stop. We'll let you finish your thought, and then we'll conclude at the end of that. So we'll start with Miss Alison Bibb-Carson.
Hi, everybody. I want to thank the Shaker League of Women Voters for inviting me to this important forum tonight. Really great to see so many people in the room. So happy about that, and happy to have folks out there in internet land. I'm Alison Bibb-Carson. I'm the write-in candidate for the Shaker School Board. So I grew up here in Shaker. I attended Sussex School from grades kindergarten through 4th grade, and then I was in the first class of the first 5th grade class at Woodbury when it became an upper elementary school, when they did that transition in 1987. I played in the orchestra right here in this building from grades 5 through 12, was a cheerleader here at the high school, and graduated in 1995. I am deeply steeped in Shaker Heights, and I feel like my very identity is rooted here, which is why when the opportunity presented itself for my husband, our 2 children, and I to move back to Northeast Ohio last year from DC for my position in strategic communications at Cleveland State, there was only one place that we were interested in living, and that was right here. Those of us who grew up here leave and then return often come back for the same reasons, that we want our children to have some of the same opportunities that we were afforded as children. But the reality is, in our district, is not everyone has that experience, even though they all deserve it. Had it not been for my super involved parents who served as my advocates at school and in the community, I could have been one of the people who slipped through the cracks. But today, there are varying definitions of success and many different paths to get there. We no longer are a district or a society that can only expect our students to attend 4-year colleges and universities immediately after high school. We're preparing our children to be civic-minded individuals and the best they can possibly be at everything they do. And the foundation of a Shaker education needs to provide students with vision and drive and allow them to see all of their possibilities. One way I think that we do this is that we seek higher standards and consistent expectations and hold all of our students accountable to those set of Shaker values and ideals, placing emphasis on mentorship, counseling, and non-judgmental support. Equity and inclusion must continue to be at the forefront of everything we do, and this starts by ensuring that the community is reflected in all facets of our school district. I think projects like Forward Together are so critical to our community. With or without the project, we have to put the plans in place throughout the city to reimagine how we use our school buildings. So I'm the only school board candidate who has children in elementary school and middle school, and obviously there are challenges that come with that. But I'm running now because I truly feel an obligation to represent working parents and with younger kids. It's imperative that I think someone on the school the school district has a representative who has experiences at those levels right now. And it's really like everything, that there's work to be done, changes to be made. The only time I see it is now. Thank you.
Thank you. Miss Lora Cover, or is it Cover? Cover, okay. Miss Lora Cover.
Thank you so much, League of Women Voters. I'm really excited to be here. I am Lora Cover. I'm running for school board, and I have 2 kids in the high school right now. When my husband and I decided to move here 10 years ago, we were just in love with Shaker. I mean, we loved the diversity of the community. We loved the fact that kids were coming out of school talking about equity in ways that just seemed so foreign to our East Coast ways. And we're really excited about it. And yet, when you walk into the high school today, you can still tell which are the classes that are advanced and which aren't based on the demographics of the kids that are sitting inside those rooms. And that is, I think, a moral imperative for us to fix. I'm a lifelong educator. I started out as a teacher in Washington, D.C. in 4th grade. So I learned firsthand the challenges of having a vision for your classroom and working really hard to get there, and working super hard on a lesson plan that may or may not work out that next day. I then went to work in administration. I was the head of human resources for Teach for America, which is a national nonprofit that works to recruit and place teachers across the country. And then I was the chief talent officer of Cleveland Metropolitan School District. And in these last few years, I've been consulting districts across the country. And in all of those places, what I have been really focused on is making sure that you find really great people to come work in your systems, and then you create a culture where they can thrive, because that's what you need to be true so that kids can succeed. So I had lots of opinions when I started out in the block parties this summer. I had lots of thoughts about what was working and not working in Shaker. And I learned a whole lot more about my community by meeting with a whole bunch of folks across our city. And what I heard was experiences that sounded like two different districts. There was one Shaker where kids were getting every resource they ever needed or desired. There were parents that felt totally supported and felt really engaged. And then there was this other Shaker where parents had to fight and advocate constantly just to get the minimal resources for their kids. And I just feel more strongly than ever that that should not be the case. So I'm excited to join the board. I'm excited to work with the board, and I'm excited to work with the district, because I think we can do better, and I believe we really can.
Thank you. Ms. Heather Weingart.
Thank you. First of all, thank you to the League of Women Voters for hosting this evening. This is my second time doing this, and nonetheless intimidating, but grateful for the opportunity. I also want to recognize Mayor Weiss, who is in the audience tonight. I saw him earlier, so thank you for being here, and all of our other elected officials who have gone before us. My family and I moved here about 15 years ago. I have two children in the Shaker schools. I have a freshman and a senior, so it's a very strange and exciting fall for us. I've been engaged with the schools since the kids started and various capacities. Actually, I kind of laughed when Mr. Roeder mentioned his wife, because she's actually the person who got me involved in the PTO 15 years ago. So, and I still work with her. I, in fact, was texting with her tonight about the band boosters. But I've worked in various capacities with the schools, from PTO presidencies to the council presidency. And then in 2017, the then Board of Education asked me to chair the $30 million successful bond issue. And that campaign actually was the platform for me to decide to run for office in my subsequent election. I have been on the board for 4 years now, and the last two I've been president of the board. And it has always been an honor, while it has been the most challenging times in recent memories for everybody. We're better for the experience, and we're a better board for the experience. Some of our accomplishments that I'm most proud of is the creation of our Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Office. And some of you might have seen that we had our finalist interview last Friday. So if you haven't caught that, we'll put a little plug in there to make sure you go to shaker.org and check out Dr. Burnley's interview and learn a little bit more about that candidate. We have also successfully extended the operating levy cycle to 7 years since the last time the school went for an operating levy. That is a Shaker record. It is also extremely uncommon in public schools in Ohio. We also have adopted our 5-year strategic plan. As many of you know, we focused a lot on community collaboration over the last 4 years, including the completion of the Fernway Restoration Project after the fire there. We have also worked with the Shaker Schools Foundation on we lost track of my words there, on the I3 initiative, which stands for Inquiry, Innovation, and Imagination. These include student-driven maker spaces, in all of our elementary schools and our robotics and mechanics lab in our high school, which was one of the initiatives that I was most interested in when I was running for my first term. I'm running out of time. So the last thing I do want to mention is going forward, pun intended, the Forward Together initiative is some of our greatest work. It is an unprecedented collaboration between the city, the schools, and the library on a long-range facilities plan that will bring synergies in cost reductions, but also in facilities and what we offer our students going forward.
Thank you. Okay, now we'll start with the questions, and as the other two candidate forums, we'll just do round robin, ask each of the candidates the same questions. And I'll start off with the first question will be, what do you see as the biggest challenge facing the district today? And what would you do to fix it or improve it? And I'll start with Ms. Carson.
I'll take my mask off. I forgot to do it during the opening statement. I think one of the biggest challenges is definitely the equity and inclusion piece. Obviously, we are already diverse, so we don't have a problem with that. The D part is we're good, but the equity and inclusion piece is what kind of frightens me, quite frankly, about Shaker right now. And it was an issue when I was here. But, I definitely think through the course consolidation and the detracking program, that is something that, is fantastic, I think, in many ways. So I'm really interested in learning exactly how that is going to end up and see measurements about that. The other thing that I think is most concerning to me about the school district right now is definitely our enrollment. We know enrollment is down and probably will continue to be down. That is the trend. So we have to figure out how we can get more people to see Shaker as a first choice district as it is.
Thank you. Let's cover.
I agree that I think equity is the biggest challenge that we have as a district right now. And I agree that I think it's been going on for a long time. I have had the opportunity to talk to board members in other districts across the country, and many of them have been really proud of the work that they have done to finally get an equity policy after the murder of George Floyd, or to finally get a chief diversity officer. And I say, yeah, Shaker's there. We did that. We've already done that. We have an equity policy. We've created a role for chief diversity, equity, inclusion here. And at the same time, we haven't put the teeth around it yet. So we have the plan, but we don't have the measures of how do we know whether we're making progress. We're not sharing data very effectively. And so we don't know what are the outcomes of our kids of color versus our white kids. And I think that there's a lot of opportunity within that space to get much more specific, both about what we're seeing and sharing, and also to be getting a whole lot more information coming from the community. I think that students and families know a lot about what's working and not working for their kids. And I think that we can be asking them a whole lot more proactively.
Thank you. Ms. Weingart?
Thank you. I also agree that diversity, equity, inclusion is one of the biggest, and I'm going to reframe it and say challenges that we face as a district. So I want to highlight what both of my future colleagues said, which is, I think I heard it right, is we need to make sure that we're communicating to our community at large on how we're achieving our goals, and that we also need to share data more effectively so we can benchmark. But I would take it a step further, and I would say what we need to do is we need to provide sustained professional development, and we need to expect that professional development. And I would say that we need to write it into the contracts of our faculty and staff as a benchmark. Thank you.
Thank you. Next question, I will start with Ms. Cover. What are your specific ideas about how Shaker schools can recruit, hire, and retain Black teachers?
I love this question. So when I went to Cleveland Metropolitan School District, I was coming from Teach for America, where we had been really successful at recruiting an incredibly diverse set of teachers throughout the country. So I was a little cocky about it. So we got to Cleveland schools, and I was like, all right, we're going to go to the HBCUs. We're going to go just make sure that people know about this opportunity in Cleveland, and they will come. And that did not work out. It was a very expensive endeavor that did not get me very far. And what I appreciate now more than ever is that actually truthfully, teachers like to be where they are from. They like to be in the communities that they have been in their entire lives. And we have incredible talent that's right here. I think we need to think about what our internal talent looks like. So who are the teaching assistants that are already in classrooms, who are diverse, who are so loyal already to Shaker and what's happening within Shaker, and how do we help them with resources to go and get their degrees and to become teachers. Our alumni are incredible. We have these outstanding alum that are graduating every year, and where are they going? We can track them. We know we can find them, and we can bring them back to Shaker, particularly around the time they are about to have a baby, because I find that grandparents are really a good bring back.
Okay, good. Thank you. Ms. Weingart?
Yes, thank you. Having a staff and a faculty that looks like our students is one of the most important things that we can do here in Shaker. There's a couple of initiatives that we've started that I'm really looking forward to exploring on how they're going to work going forward. One of them is that we have an administrative intern track right now where we are identifying people that are already on our staff and creating a sustainable track for them. They're going to work for a year under our administrators. They are not working in the classroom at that time. And then the goal is that we would be able to place them in an administrative role with our district. The other group that we have is our Black Teacher Task Force. And we started that with the initial implementation of our Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Office. They've been around for about a year. And they have identified key areas where we can grow our existing staff and recruit outside talent. So I think those two things will help us over the next couple of years. And as a board, it'll be extremely important that we benchmark that and ask for report outs on a regular basis so that we can get good data.
Thank you. And Ms. Bibb-Carson?
Yeah, as Heather mentioned, Black teachers tend to recruit Black teachers. My mom is a Black teacher, and she's a retired Black teacher, or a retired teacher who happens to be Black. She was recruited to work. She was working, this was in the 90s, in the Cleveland district, and was recruited by another Black teacher to work in the Orange district because they desperately needed more teachers of color. So that is one way that I definitely think we do it. Black teachers, no Black teachers nationwide. I definitely think, definitely having that HBCU pipeline is key. Though I understand that, teachers like to kind of live where they are, but that's where marketing, and this is what I do for a living, that's where marketing Shaker and marketing the Northeast Ohio and Greater Cleveland is so important. Talking about all the things that we can take advantage of here and the cost of living. That's one of the reasons why my family moved back from DC, was that the lower cost of living. And that is what makes Shaker very desirable. So I would like to see recruiting efforts there as well.
Thank you. Next question, I will start with Ms. Weingart. Can you summarize the educational and systemic changes in the schools in the last 2 to 3 years and research behind those changes?
Oh, in 60 seconds. I can try. So what we've done is when we wrote our strategic plan, we had 2 key variables that we focused on, and that was equity and the International Baccalaureate program. And doing that sort of directs all the rest of our efforts. So we took a look at our staff and we said, okay, where are we providing supports? And I'd be remiss if I didn't mention, well, we all know we've been in COVID for 18 months. So some of the efforts that we were planning on have sort of been diverted in other directions. But one of the things that we stayed true to is looking at where are there gaps and how can we better staff those gaps. So this year, for the first time, we have literacy specialists in our classrooms, and we have at all of our buildings. We also have built-in time frames in addition to class time where children are given, each and every child is given additional support during the school day, every day, every week, to help fill those gaps. There are several more initiatives that I could talk about, but I only have 60 seconds and I have my stop sign, so.
Okay.
Sorry.
Thank you. Ms. Bibb-Carson?
So obviously, I've only been here a year, been back in Shaker for a year. So it's hard to really speak to, what has been going on in the school district for me for the past 2 years. What I do know, and what I'm, really excited about, and that's something that we mentioned earlier, was the course consolidation, the core classes consolidation, and the detracking that is going on in the system. And the detracking went into effect during the pandemic. So I think it would be really interesting to see post-pandemic, if we ever get out of the pandemic, where that actually leads. We understand that the curriculum can't just change because we change our model. The district has to ensure that, teachers are provided with ongoing professional development so that they can teach to a broader group of students.
Thank you. Ms. Cover?
Yeah, I'm going to pick up on the detracking piece because I think that it's one of the most important things that the district has done in at least the last couple of years. And I think, and I think the reason for it is, the reason why I think it's the most exciting is that we know it is one of the most racist systems that exist, tracking. And we have seen across the country as school systems have started to get rid of it, what we've seen is excellent rise across the district. And so I think that there's a lot of opportunity there. I also think that it takes a lot of courage to do it because you also don't see a lot of support usually for these big changes that mean something's going to change for my student without knowing exactly what the outcomes are going to be. So I think it was really courageous of the district and the board to take it on. And I think it's a really important shift. And I think really sort of aligns to the work that you all were doing in terms of thinking about equity first as your linchpin.
Good. Thank you. Next question, I will start with Ms. Bibb-Carson. There are inequalities between resources and facilities at the various elementary schools. How would you help correct that?
So we know that equality and equity are not the same things, and that we have schools, especially at the elementary school level, that have different needs. They have different needs for different resources based on the student population. Can you repeat the question one more time?
Sure.
Please?
There are inequalities between resources and facilities at the various elementary schools. How would you help correct that?
Okay. So I think through the Forward Together campaign, this is definitely key. Now is the time for us to invest in our schools and capital improvements. We've seen it at Fernway, and my son goes to Fernway, and obviously the unfortunate thing is the way we got to this Fernway being set, a new school virtually is due to the fire. But that also gave us an opportunity to I think look inward and see that everyone in the community, all of the students in the elementary schools, in the middle school, and the high school, quite frankly, we need to take a better look at our facilities.
Thank you. Let's cover.
When we were moving here, my husband works for Case, and they gave us a realtor to take us around. And she did not want to show us anything in Shaker because she said, they're always redistricting schools in Shaker, and you don't want to go live there. And when I found out more about it, I was like, that's exactly why I want to live in Shaker. We didn't recommend her to other people after that either. But I do think what the behind that idea was that we should have equity across our system and that we should have representation across the system. And I think what's happened over the last couple decades is that we don't see that equity across anymore. And so I agree. I think the Forward Together is a really important opportunity for us to really take a look at how are we zoning our kids? What kind of resources are we giving our kids? How are we making sure that there is a building that does something that's specific for a certain set of kids and make sure that those kids are there? And I also think Forward Together is really dependent on everyone getting out and going to these community meetings that are coming up over the next couple weeks. And so, as you see those emails coming in, it is so critical because one of the things that I had this moment sitting in Moreland with families talking about how they couldn't get to this Mercer, right? Like their kids were bused, but they couldn't personally get to Mercer, and how important it is for you to know your teacher and how important that is. And I know one of the ideas coming up, could mean that there's more crossing across the city. And so thinking about what those are going to be important.
Thanks. All right. And Ms. Weingart?
It was a great answer.
Mm-hmm.
So I think, hindsight, looking back, Fernway was a tragedy, but what it did do for us is it provided us an opportunity to see what is actually possible. And from a long-range facilities standpoint, it sets the standards. So there's a couple of different, we talked about Forward Together a lot tonight. That is the way forward to study our facilities and to take a look at who has what, who's going where, which students are walking, which students are bused, and look at that. But it's also In the meantime, while we are waiting for those interim options from the Forward Together process and vetting them with the community, we also have the opportunity to work with the Shaker Schools Foundations like we have. I mentioned in my opening statement about the I3 initiative. That is a perfect expression of how we can utilize our foundation to equalize resources across our schools. Putting a maker space in each one of our elementary schools was something that we weren't even discussing 3 years ago. And so it is possible to capitalize on the power of our foundation. Thank you.
Thank you. Next question is, I'll start with Ms. Cover. The value of high quality pre-K and student development is well known. How would you approach providing more students with a higher level of pre-K, and how would you fund it?
So I think we talked already about how enrollment is decreasing in Shaker. It's decreasing across the entire region. We're not so surprised by it, and we know that one of the best ways to get kids into the system is to get them into pre-K. And all of the research says that that is the best return on investment that we can put our money into. So I would say that is something that we should be putting our money into. We should be ensuring that there is pre-K throughout our buildings. We have room. And we know there's also a desire and a need. I think my understanding was that there was 30 families on a wait list this year. There's no reason why anyone should be on a wait list. Like, this is exactly when we should be putting our resources.
Thank you. Ms. Weingart?
I agree. I would love to have universal pre-K here in Shaker sooner rather than later. And I hate to sound redundant, but again, that's where our Forward Together initiative becomes so powerful in figuring out we do have excess capacity in our buildings, but does that mean that we close buildings, or does that mean that we redesign our grade bands and offer more opportunities? As far as funding goes, the Shaker schools have, in the 2 different classes that we have now, we do offer scholarships, and we also have the tuition is less than what you would pay at another pre-K. So we are always looking at how we can juggle our resources, and I think there's more opportunities for that as well. Once we look into the facilities planning, we can figure out grants and resources that we can get there. So
Thank you. Ms. Bibb-Carson?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely agree with both of them. We know that people are still having babies. So definitely having, and they're having babies, but then they're leaving the district or going to another district. So I definitely think having universal pre-K here in Shaker and keeping kids in Shaker and starting them in Shaker, so that, and then having the facilities for them to move up through the district is definitely key to keeping families here.
Thank you. Next question, I will start with Ms. Weingart. What is your point of view on career technical education? Are Shaker schools doing enough? And what additions or changes would you like to see?
Well, I think Ms. Carson, when she in her opening statement mentioned how important the different pathways for students are. I am a huge fan of career tech learning. Shaker Schools is currently part of a, I want to say, I'm going to get it wrong. We're part of a huge collaboration of schools where our students can take CTI classes at all of surrounding area schools. This year is the first year that Shaker has offered 2 classes of our own here in our building, which is, again, something that I've been pushing for several years. I'm very excited about that opportunity. Excess space and creative minds can get us to where we need to go so that we have more kids coming to Shaker to take our career tech classes than leaving Shaker. But I am actually very fond of our consortium and the accreditations and certifications that our students come out of Shaker schools with allow them to take full-time jobs at salaries well beyond many other districts. So
Thank you. Ms. Bibb-Carson?
Yes, I definitely think collaboration is key with, and then bringing the surrounding districts into Shaker, and then hopefully we don't want our kids to leave Shaker, but definitely having that collaboration where maybe they're going back and forth, or that we're bringing everyone, as Heather said, we have the space, so why not use it? And definitely, I think it's important to put students who are on a tech pipeline, putting them into a pipeline where it might be, collaborating with Tri-C and with other, community colleges in the area where they can get the training that they need. And I definitely think, finding out ways that they can get hands-on training while they're in high school, whether it's, at another school or here in Shaker, is definitely important.
Thank you, Ms. Cover.
Education in America looks very similar to what it looked like in 1950. I mean, this is like the slowest changing system in our country, I think. And so I'm pretty excited about career tech. I'm pretty excited about any of the pieces of innovation that's happening within Shaker that really is getting at what are kids' interests and then creating opportunities that connect to their interests. I think design lab starting out in elementary school changes what might be in a kid's head about what they might want to do. I think the Innovation Center in the high school is doing some really incredible things to let students really choose what their academic future looks like. And I think what's happening around in the Career Tech and the consortium, I think, is excellent. And I think there's so many more opportunities and so many more ways that we can help work towards mastery and skills as opposed to the same stuff that our grandparents are doing.
Thank you. The next question, I'll start with Ms. Bibb-Carson. It is a multi-part question. So if you need me to repeat it, just let me know.
Okay.
There is much talk about the district attempting to change how education is done. Why is it important? What models are being studied by the board? Who is the board taking direction and guidance from? How is the board communicating with the community about the benefits of the changes? You want me to repeat?
Sure.
Okay. There is much talk about the district attempting to change how education is done. Why is it important? What models are being studied by the board? Who is the board taking direction and guidance from? And how is the board communicating with the community about the expected benefits of such changes?
Okay. So we talked about it. How we talked about it a little bit anyway about the detracking and course consolidation programs, and also just general diversity, equity, and inclusion, making sure that all of our students here in Shaker have equal access to everything that they need in order to be successful. So why that's important is just what I said. So they can be successful in whatever they choose to be, whenever they choose to be it. I can't speak to really what the board is doing at this point right now, other than we've said it before, the Forward Together initiative. But I definitely think communicating, and this is what I do for a living, communicating with residents who do not have children in the district is definitely key to our success with this. Obviously, residents who don't have children, they're paying taxes just like we are. So everyone has got to have a stake in it. Everyone has to be involved, and everyone has to know what we're doing.
Thank you. Ms. Cover?
So I'm like so interested in what might be behind that question about what's being changed, because I think that there's probably more changes that should be made and they should be happening faster. But I do think change is hard and people sort of struggle with it, and having that information is super important, as Alison was just talking about, right? Like, to actually make changes, you need to make sure people have the information. And I think that's one of the challenges that we have at Shaker is we send out a lot of information and it's really hard to kind of digest it all. Heather was just sharing a stat with me the other day about the percentage of jobs that don't exist today that our kids are going to be in. Of course, we need to change what education looks like when we don't even know what jobs our kids are going to be doing 10 years, even 5 years from now. And I think it is imperative that as we continue to make the changes that are important for the district, we continue to do the real stakeholder engagement that needs to happen, which includes both the communication out, getting feedback back in, and also the training and support that needs to happen for our teachers and educators.
Thank you. Ms. Weingart?
Yes, so the reason why it's important is because what we're doing in our classrooms right now is putting a square peg in a round hole. We are asking our teachers to give a 21st century education in a 20th century classroom. I would challenge anybody to go and talk to our teachers and ask them what it is they're being asked to deliver versus the place that they have to deliver it in. As far as who the board is taking direction from or models that we're looking at, Just over the last year, a couple of different examples. We have partnered with West Wind, which is a consultant group, and they have built vertical bands between our math teachers from middle school to the high school so that we can start to grab our students in the 7th and 8th grade, figure out who's going to need some supports, and then work with our high school teachers to make sure the supports are there before they even walk in the building. Or in a couple weeks, we have a whole bunch of teachers going to see Joe Bowler. Virtually, because Joe Bowler is out of Stanford. But to learn about differentiating math and heterogeneous classrooms and how those work. So those are all the things that we're currently doing, and we will continue to pursue that.
Thank you. We'd like to thank the candidates for school board for coming out as well. Let's give them a round of applause. And tomorrow, the video will be posted at Facebook at League of Women Voters, Shaker Heights. And our website will be Google League of Women Voters, Shaker Heights. So the video will be posted there tomorrow. I'm not sure what time, but sometime tomorrow. So if you didn't get a chance to see the whole candidate form, all 3 of them, please log on to one of those websites and check us out. Thank you. And we'd like to thank Shaker Heights for the use of this facility. Annette, do you have any final words that you'd like to? Thank you. Everyone have a great evening. Thank you.